talk a little bit about our immigration numbers and how that's gonna affect the market leading up to the end of 2023 and 2024?
Yeah, okay, sounds good. So we touched that a little bit last week too, right? Like we're seeing over 1 million people come into the to the country, permanent residents and students as well too.
So because when we were chatting about the missing middle, right?
Yeah.
That was
an interesting article.
That is a huge conversation to be had. I mean, so what that essentially means is, there's a ton of houses, detached homes, single family homes that are way over budget in terms of what a millennial could buy. And then there's these towers that have these 400 square foot condos that could never fit a family.
Right.
So that middle link is kind of missing, and these millennials are struggling to get their first house.
Yeah, millennials and like we said, immigrants as well.
And
too.
immigrants, they're hurting the most.
They're hurting the most. Yeah. So like you said, so it kind of all leads to this, baby boomers own these homes because most of Ontario and especially Toronto and British Columbia are zoned single family residential, right? They have these family homes. Yeah.
50% in Toronto.
Yeah, I think, it might even be more that are single family and semi-detached. They call it like the yellow belt. That's the term that someone coined. It was about 75% is zoned for single family and semi-detached. And why that's an issue is because it doesn't create density. So what happens is then builders now make basically concrete towers of condominiums that aren't suited for families, right? You cannot fit, you can't literally have a family of four living in a 700 square foot condominium. So I think
until they decide to change this, which in BC they're starting to.
Yeah, we heard rumors of it kind of come
which
out.
I like, and that's awesome. And Ontario says little things like they're going to hop on that
build
train.
More homes,
So what they're doing in BC, so these mass amounts of space that are completely zoned single family they're now saying come the end of the year, there's no more zoning provisions. You can build a triplex, fourplex, add a second dwelling in your home without going through those zoning provisions, which essentially is just allowing more densification, like you were saying. BC also said, which I liked, and I hope Ontario kind of follows their lead here, is that if you plan to add a second dwelling in your house, you can apply for a $40,000 grant. If you already have kind of a basement, a separate entrance, $40K will get you that kitchen room, pretty much, right? And if you rent it for 2 years after having built it with their $40K grant or I guess loan, it then becomes forgivable.
Right.
So I like that. So essentially the government will give you, a homeowner, money to finish your basement or add a garden suite, $40,000, and then rent it for 2 years, provide proof that you essentially added more houses on the market, in the rental market.
More units,
More units, and we'll forgive that debt.
Yeah, they're incentivizing you.
They're incentivizing you.
Yeah, which is what we've been talking about so much.
Right.
Yeah.
And I really like that. So they're kind of filtering the money back because, we see some provinces that don't have land transfer tax or, and I like that too, because they're filtering the money back into building more supply. And what was interesting to me is that, 2017 in the Liberals' plan was to build more housing. What BC is doing is an awesome, goal, and we're headed in the right direction in terms of what they're doing. But then Ontario, you look at land transfer tax, last year alone was 1.5 billion in land transfer tax.
With a B.
With a B. And then most of the developments, or I guess all of them, about 25% is taxed. So that's why we see these developers creating these tiny little condos because they want to sell as many because 25% is going to be taxed.
Yeah.
So no one's talking about the land transfer and taxing these developments. Their plan is to, the first-time home buyers bill of rights and blind bidding. Little things, the first-time home buyers savings plan. These are not helping us.
It doesn't help. It really doesn't. And just high level, my understanding of this is that, because some people just don't really get what it means, but I think that, so the provincial government is basically saying to municipalities that we're abolishing your zoning rules.
Yeah.
So an example would be the Ontario government, which Doug Ford has talked about. He's talked about adding multiple dwellings to municipalities. And basically what that would mean would be that Doug Ford runs, say he runs Ontario and then Oakville could not have single family zoning. So say your parents' home, you're allowed to build a duplex on it now.
Yeah.
Because they abolished the zoning. And then your parents go, well, my house is kind of decapitated. Maybe we should knock it down. We should all invest. And then we can split 2 semis. And then all of a sudden you create more density within Oakville, just as an example. But you do that everywhere.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the missing middle actually has opportunity to get into the housing market.
Right.
So I think that's the idea of what this would do. It adds more units and allows more people to actually raise families. It would increase our birth rate. It would hopefully bring down prices. But the biggest issue is that you have people who own these single family homes, then not in my backyard people.
Yeah.
And they don't want to see that. They don't want to see semis and stuff in their backyard.
Right. And then the parties that are saying we're going to, allow for this change, it's the baby boomers and the seniors that have the most reliable vote that don't want this to happen. So, I mean, the first time ever you were saying that your parents actually kind of see, okay, there's a need for what I guess they don't want is to see semis all over their street, but they understand the need for it now.